Okay, so I'd like to welcome everybody to Sit Social Issues Time with my wonderful co-host. We are just the most amazing team of women on the planet.
Things that happen behind the scenes.
And Gauthami has taught us some new animal sounds that
Why is it that I always get put on the spot?
that will be coming to a children's video near you.
They're going to take my children's book off the shelf after they see that.
No, I think you've got a gig. Go. Okay, anyway, we're going to get
let's
serious.
reel it in, okay?
So we're getting very serious. So, ladies, let's go on and get started. Tilde, Gauthami, I think the audience knows who you all are, and so we're just going to go on and dive right into the conversation. So this past couple of weeks have been, especially within the last week, has been really tense and challenging in our society. And so, my question to you all is, how are you in the midst of all this that's going on?
Before today, I was really stressed. I realized I had been watching way too much TV and getting sucked into all the Facebook drama and just negativity that was reeling out there, I mean, we watch TV and there's no real solutions being offered. And so therefore you kind of fall into this vicious cycle of just watching the drama unfold and re-unfold and be retold over and over again. And it was just really bumming me out, and it was, I think it also made me realize how quickly we're able to see things unfold, happen right before our eyes, I mean, you think about what happened in Turkey, and, that happened right after the thing in Nice, and just having one thing after another for us here in Dallas, then Baton Rouge, and to have all those things happening at the same time, it was just overwhelming. And so I really realized yesterday, it's time for me to disconnect.
Yeah, agree.
And that's why I had no idea what was happening today, because I literally have not really looked at Facebook unless I was, we were broadcasting earlier this morning, but I have no idea what's happening in the news today.
And when you do decide to turn on the TV, I think you're going to get a good kick out of it, and everything that's happened in the last week, this will bring a smile to your face.
Yeah, and at the same time, I realize, I don't want to say that we should put our heads in the sand, but to have that time to ourselves to where you can kind of replenish your soul a little bit from all the negative issues that are really out there.
I agree with Tilde. I mean, last 2 weeks have been horrendous. It's been one thing after another. And I actually told myself I am not going to say hashtag pray for this, pray for that, pray for this, because it's happening over and over. And we have to learn, expect the unexpected. And, as they come, we'll have to learn to heal and deal with it.
I think for me, it's been overwhelming, because one, as a parent, you're getting ready to send your child out into the world. Right. And you can't say, oh, it's this safe, wonderful place. And as much as you want to protect your kids, it's difficult to do that. And so you're wrestling with it on that level and seeing their apprehension and fear, in addition to your own. Yeah. And for me, I did like you, Tilde, once, especially what happened in Dallas, because you're here. Right. I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning watching the news. And I remember Kaze came in and told me about it. And we were crying. It's just like, I can't believe, that all of this is happening and I'm living in a time like this. And so I found myself being pulled into not only television, but social media. Yeah, and I just, and I saw a lot of different conversations that were going on that weren't helpful. And then what was interesting for me is I had a lot of people privately inbox me and say, what do I do? And I thought that was so cool to see people who don't look like me, who were reaching out going, I don't know what to do, but I want to do something. Yeah. And I think that there are multiple conversations that are going on that are necessary. I think there has to be the individual piece where we're talking as humans and recognizing the humanity in each person. Right. But I think there's this collective conversation that we have to have, as well as, to your point, how do we move forward? Right. And what do we do about a society that has become so violent and laced with hatred and mean conversations? How do we move?
And what's so interesting is that, usually when we travel to another country, when there's terrorism in those countries going on, we have these high alerts. But I think it was the Bahamas and there's a couple of other countries that actually issued, America, high alert, be careful with, police and this. And that's really sad to hear that.
Yes.
It's really sad to hear that. And you don't want to lose compassion and you don't want to lose your faith in humanity, but sometimes you just really have to doubt what's happening in this world.
Well, and I think that's the media responsibility too, because so much, 90% of what they air is negative.
Right.
It is violence.
Media
It is
sensationalism,
hate. Yeah,
right?
It's total sensationalism. So you don't hear about the great things people are doing for each other, and I think to lose sight of that, and to think that that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, basically, is what we begin to think when we allow ourselves to be sucked into that world of negativity and violence and hate. Whereas if we look around, even within our own communities, the people that are doing the great work,
Right. I think what kept me, above water last week. I don't know if you guys saw the gentleman that was giving out free hugs to everyone. That really made me smile. To see more videos like that, I think it really helps. Yeah,
I think that one of the things that we have to be careful about is there has to be attention on issues that are not good and working, because we can't move forward. And I think for a lot of us, so many of these issues with police brutality, those things have kind of been pushed aside, except for, people that are having to live that reality. Yeah. And so those are conversations that we have to have and do something about. At the same time, we have to have conversations about not all law enforcement is bad.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so there is this tension, I think, in our society, and I think we've talked about this before, that we can't have this both and. It has to be either or. Right. And I think that's very dangerous, because you have to recognize that you're not dealing with a simple issue. It's so complex and it has so many multiple variables that are involved. And I think as a country, we haven't done a good job of looking at our historical baggage. Right. And as a country, we've been violent. Mm-hmm. And when you look at how we fed our kids this diet of violence, when you look at the video games that they're looking at, we're creating a group of people who don't have sensitivity toward each other. So it's very easy for them to go out and blast people.
Well, and you think about how we grew up, right? I'm 47, and when I was growing up, the TV would shut off at 10 o'clock or midnight. Mm-hmm. And it didn't come back on till 6 o'clock in the morning,
You're
7
lucky
o'clock
midnight.
in the morning. Yeah, literally, unless your parents, were stricter, because like my parents were on the weekdays, 9, 10 o'clock, you're in bed. And I think now it's that 24/7 nonstop.
And now you have access to all, your iPhone, your iPad. It's just I this, I that.
You're always on.
Yeah, if you're always on, you can never be turned off.
And that to me is the challenge that we're going to have, is how do we deal with having information constantly being fed to us? Exactly. And that's good to some degree, but what do you do with it?
Well, you filter it. That's what you do with it. You have to filter it, because if you don't filter it and you keep allowing everything to come at you all at once, then you're not doing anybody any good, especially yourself, because then I think we have to really guard ourselves, against those things. Our mind, our body, our spirit, all of those things, because if we're always on and if we don't filter the things and limit ourselves, then it's going to inundate us. It's going to overwhelm us over and over again.
It did me. It was very difficult as an African American female to see some of the things that were going on, and being a person of faith. I'm going, this is not what my faith says we should do. Right. And how do you love in the midst of this, but also look at justice? Mm-hmm. And it was overwhelming. And so for me, it's been, how do you find the space to heal and retreat, and yet still have awareness and do something? My fear right now is we're in a place where people are having a lot of conversations. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid that folks are walking around patting themselves going, I had a conversation. How do you move forward in doing something that makes a difference? Yeah. And Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson had a forum this weekend. I heard it went so well. They had like 300 people and folks are talking. And one of the concerns I've raised with people is, that's great, but the people need to be at those forums. aren't the ones who are there.
Right.
Those are the ones who are on social media blasting other folks.
And I think one of the things that we have to look at, what is the common denominator that's causing all this? And I don't know if you guys agree, but it's this easy access to guns. I feel like that's one of the biggest common denominators here based on some of the stuff that we've seen. Maybe that's part of it. That's part of it, you know?
People are, in my opinion, are going to be mean whether they have guns or not.
Right. And I'm basing this on, the last few incidents that have occurred. So,
but I mean, open carry is interesting. I mean, because if all of us walk into Toys R Us with guns, that's going to be an interesting situation. I think that, I understand people's desire to have them and the right to bear arms.
Okay.
I get that. I'm also concerned about AK-47s and having, assault rifles, and access to that at Walmart. So I have some concerns about access to certain guns and weapons and grenades and things like that. I don't know why you need that at your house, but
and I'm not for it. I'm just saying one of the.
But I also have to be honest and say that even with guns being gone, you still have people that are dealing with hatred and violence. And so if I don't have a gun, I'll just take this vase and beat the mess out of you with it. Yeah. It's getting to the root cause, in my opinion, as to why we feel that I've got to hurt you. In order to exist, I have to make sure that I'm protected from you.
And that starts with the thought process, what you're thinking, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not pure here, then how can you act out pure thoughts,
And it doesn't matter, I think, whether you have an assault rifle or you have access to guns. An assault rifle, first of all, is not available to gun owners legally, right? I mean, but that's illegal. Okay, that's illegal. Legally, you can't own an assault rifle, and the types of guns that were used with, like, let's say this thing in Dallas, they weren't assault rifles. I mean, they look like them, but they're not. They're just typical, what were they, M5s or something like that they used?
Like 223.
Yeah, they're basically 22 that look like an assault gun. And I'm not making light of that at all. The fact is that they bought them legally, right? And so for me, the issue with the guns is not so much the guns, but it's the people
behind it,
buying those guns,
The guy in the big truck wasn't shooting at people; he was just mowing them down with the truck.
Yeah. Right, and you take that for example. He never picked up a weapon. The guy in Nice, he used a truck as an assault weapon, and he had all the guns in the back and never got to use them. So I mean, if people are going to want to do wrong to other people, they're going to find a way.
That's why I said they use
it.
a vase. I mean, they're going to do it. It's a heart issue to me.
Right.
It's a mind and a heart issue. And so how do you help people with dealing with that? And my concern is, okay, so you take all the guns away from folks who are law abiding. There's still people who are going to get guns illegally and do that.
The only people who are going to have guns are the people that are breaking the law.
So I understand the gun conversation, but to me, I'm like, that's a symptom of something much greater. That we have to pay attention to. When kids can get on video games and play these very bloody games, when you see the amount of bullying that happens in schools. I was doing a radio interview earlier, and when she told me about the dating violence that happens to these kids, I am blown away by how many young women are being beaten and abused in high school. So we have an epidemic around the way we value human life at the core of what's going on.
Well, I think we've become desensitized to humanity, basically, and being able to have compassion and empathy for people because, our kids are living in a virtual world, that they create for themselves, and there are no feelings or anything like that. You do whatever you want to people, and you win.
Yeah. I remember in school, like 4th or 5th grade, we would have our school counselors come in and teach us about certain values, trusting people, compassion, honesty. Does that even exist anymore in our school system? Do they even teach that?
The problem is adults don't live by that at this point.
So how do we expect our kids to do it?
How do you expect your kids to do it? When I was having a conversation earlier about where did integrity go?
Yeah.
Because people, don't think about some of the things that they're doing. I'm like, okay, but you can fuss at this group, but you're not really doing this to yourself. Yeah. I think we have a heart issue, and integrity and those kinds of things aren't being taught because people don't live it.
No, I think and we can't we can't put everybody in a box like that, because I think some people are are living by, a moral code. At the same time, I think if there's anything that should come out of this that's good, is those conversations, right? And the conversations that teach us how to listen to people that we may have offended, unknowingly offended. But if I tell you, Francois, gosh, what you just said really hurt, for you to take that to heart and for me to explain to you why that hurt, or why you calling me something, or calling my ethnicity group, Mexicans, a derogatory name, and why that hurts my feelings or why I find it offensive, you should really take that to heart, right? And instead, I think, I know a lot of people are doing that now and self-evaluating themselves as to, what are those things that maybe I've said that have hurt people, or that people have said hurt me, and I continue to say them,
Right.
And so for me, I hope that the one thing that comes out of this is the
Censorship?
regulation.
Censorship.
Checking ourselves, basically,
not
right?
only censorship,
But it's a regulation.
Yeah, it's
to
a
me.
regulation. It's also a compassion. Like, if I am hurting somebody, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But it's being honest to do that, because if I'm not in community with you, for a lot of people, let's be honest, and I don't want to stereotype and generalize, everybody doesn't have integrity. That's not what I meant. But if I'm not in community with you and have a relationship, then it's hard to have those conversations. Right. So if your network looks just like you, then you may need to start looking at how you change your network so that you can bring people in and learn what makes people, sensitive. Why do people feel the way that they do? That's important.
Right. And that, I think sometimes that has to start within our own family, because we see this within our own family. So if it starts with us, then we can easily,
and using our voices collectively to question people and why they're using certain language or certain terms, when in addressing different ethnicities.
And I think having conversation at the point of crisis is really important, because if we let that linger, then we're going to lose our thought process, and we're not going to know what to say later on.
And it festers.
Yeah.
It grows, and I think that, in light of what's happened, I think that there's hope. Yeah. I think that this is an opportunity as a country for us to really begin to turn the page and look at, what we've done, but what we can do together. Any last comments on, if you had to give people solutions on, two things: how do you protect yourself in this? What would you say? And then what's the solution to move forward to have these conversations?
Yeah, for me, it's like we talked about, just self-regulating both our speech, our thoughts, and how we act, or the actions that we take, how much TV how much time we spend on TV, how much time we spend on social media, that puts us into a frame of mind that we don't want to be in.
I agree. So we have to learn to think 2 steps ahead. Okay, if I say this, what is that person going to think? How is this going to affect them long term? So we have to learn to check ourselves.
Yeah. I think we have to pay attention to us, and why do you feel the way that you do? I think reflection is so important. So if you've grown up in, whatever background, I think it's important to question why you think the way that you do.
Well, the only things we can change is ourselves.
Right. And I think people have to have these moments of cognitive dissonance where you are faced with these issues that are very uncomfortable. Yeah. And instead of pushing them aside, how do you allow yourself to wrestle through it to come out on the other side of how you felt? Right. And I think that's important. So we are running out of time. And I want to, once again, thank you all for such a wonderful conversation. And we thank you. If you've got thoughts or comments that are positive, feel free to reach out and let us know what are the topics and things that you'd like for us to bring forward, or if there are even guests that you think should be on the show. Send us a note. And I want to do a shout out.
And let us know, how all these things have affected you and how you've been dealing with it, and maybe give us some ideas on how we can better integrate some positive things into our own lives, or maybe some things that you've learned along the way, even that you'd like to share with the audience that might enlighten somebody else.
Yes. Your feedback is integral, and we would love to hear from you. Yeah.
And last shout out is to You Go Girl. Check them out.
You Go Girl. Is it yougogirl.com?
Yeah, yougogirl.com. You Go Girl.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You Go Girl. Thank
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.